Hey guys, my name is Ethan, this is Carbra, and welcome back to the tutorial series that I teach you how to build a Discord.py bot for your server. Today we're going to be doing all sorts of database stuff, so there's not actually going to be a huge amount of programming today. But yeah, it's mainly just going to be creating the database, understanding what the database is going to be doing, and then doing kind of a few commands, adding our database commands in here and stuff like that. So first we need to create our database. So you'll need to open up your database management program that you downloaded, unless you downloaded a DB browser for SQLite, because if you do it in the search, it doesn't appear. I don't know why. At least it doesn't for me. You can always try it and see if it does. If it doesn't appear, there is a very easy way of doing it. Just open a brand new file. Just save it as. No, I'll save it as DB create. I've already created one, but we'll just write over it. And then from SQLite 3 import connect connect equals actually we don't even need that. Connect database.db and then just quit the program, and that will create a database for you. So that's a nice little shortcut. Let's see where it is. It's here. No, that's the wrong one. It's in the actuals one. It's there. There we go. This is our database. Apologies immediately for everyone who was just settling into dark mode, and apologies for everyone that's looking at this overnight. My computer's night light is on at the moment, and I don't know if OBS will be recording that. I guess we'll find out. It doesn't matter either way, really. But yeah, what we need to do, we need to create a table. We need to create a table called users. We need to add a few fields. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our user ID field. We're also going to add some XP. We're going to do a level. What else is we going to do? Strikes, if you wanted it. We're probably not going to do anything with strikes, really. We might do, I don't know. We'll have to see. If people want to see, I messed up. If people want to see stuff like a proper strike system, then I can do that. That'd be fine. Let's keep my TV on. I was just about to shut down there because I've had it on for a while. So another cut. My flatmate came in again. Bizarrely, it's the same one, so I don't quite know how that happened, but there you go. So we now have our 6 fields that we're going to use. We have user ID, XP level, strikes, XP locked until, which I'll get into in the next video, and muted until, which we'll get into in another future video. So if you just make this a little bit bigger, just so you can kind of understand what's going on. We need to make our user ID our primary key. Essentially what this is not null, this is primary key, this is God knows, and this is unique. So if you want something to be unique but not a primary key, you can put it in here. We do need to change these two. This white is actually quite badly hurting my eyes now. I'm very used to dark mode, so this is kind of killing me. So user ID is the only one we don't want to default to. We'll default XP to 0. I'm just going to check OBS to make sure that no keyboard shortcuts fired this time. They didn't, thank God. That's what happened last time, and that's why I can't use those videos. The downsides of running 2 channels. With these, we're going to expand this a little bit. With these time-based ones, because these are going to have timestamps, we can actually set the default values to a variable called current timestamp, which is the current time, if you didn't guess that already. So basically what this default means is that we don't need to explicitly define all of these variables every single time we create a new record. We just need to create user ID. So I'm very quickly going to do that. Write changes this time, because that was something else I did wrong last time. And hit new record. You'll see user ID. In SQLite, if nothing's passed here, it automatically takes row ID. We won't need to bother about that. So that can be some sort of ID. Okay, I've done pluses in that. That's not good. Some sort of ID. So it's close enough. So as you can see, the XP level, strikes, XP locked until, and muted until all came at the same time. Now you may also notice that the time on my computer is different from the time in the database. That's because databases run exclusively in UTC, pretty much, and the default values, at least if you do it like this, if you do it in proper SQL you can get around it, But if you do it like this, default values don't work. It's kind of bizarre. Well, like, okay, so the normal function you do to set a time zone really is date time now, and then for me it would be BST. But in DB browser, setting as a default value using the thing just won't work at all. There is a way around that, and I'll show you a way around that. However, if you're hosting this on a VBS, then you are going to want to do UTC, Universal Coordinated Time. It's just a lot better. So I think that's all our stuff we need in the database, if I remember rightly. That should be it, yeah. So we just need to get our database commands in. So we're going to create a new class on top of everything, because we're not going to need to edit this really. Database, if I can actually spell it correctly. There are a number of functions that we're going to use here. This is another example where we could do something Pythonically 3.8, as I'm now going to call it. But most of these functions are different ways of selecting data, just to make it easier to manipulate it so it's all done in the actual function. So the first one is to select a field, and they're all going to take the same things. So they're all going to take a command, and they're all going to take any number of values. And what we're going to do is cursor. I would like the cursor, please. Did we not? Oh, we didn't create the database object. Sorry, that was my bad. We need to create the database. Did we not even import SQLite? I don't think we did. That's good. No, phone, don't do that. We did not import SQLite. That's quite bad. We'll do that real quick. From SQLite import connect. It's not SQLite, it's SQLite 3. So database equals connect to database.db, and then cursor equals database.cursor. So this database is a connection object, and this cursor is kind of what you perform operations with. So for example, cursor.execute commands, and then we're going to set tuple values. The reason we're doing this is so we don't have to worry about trailing commas, and so actual calling functions look prettier, so we just have to pass them as arguments over and over, rather than actually having to specify a tuple full of arguments, or if it's one argument, a tuple with a trailing comma. Otherwise it will treat every single character as a different argument. It's just a bit of a mess if you don't do it like this, really. It's just the easy way of doing it. So that will perform that function. You then get it's called fetch equals cursor.fetch1, fetch 1, there we go. And then if fetch is not none, return fetch 0. Essentially what we're doing here is we are unpacking the only variable, or we're unpacking the only element in the tuple that it returns, just so we get the value back rather than a tuple. The way to do it in Python 3.8 is we can ignore this line completely. We can use the walrus operator again. So we can do cursor.fetch1 is not none, and then it will work just the same in theory. Again, don't know if you need brackets. Again, never use Python 3.8. Again, it's not out yet when I'm recording this. Next one is one record, and then pretty much everything from here to here is exactly the same. I might actually just quickly copy and paste just all of that, so I can just quickly do it. And then one record, so we're going to be returning one row at a time rather than one value at a time. So we just need fetch 1, and that'll work fine. We then need to have a function that returns multiple records, which you use fetch cursor.fetch all, and then we also, every now and then, we will want to return a column. So we'll need to do, again, a bit more of list comprehension, but just item, the 0th element in the item, for item in cursor dot fetch all, because it's not natively supported. But what we mean by returning a column is, say in this here, if you wanted to return the number, I don't know, if you wanted to look up all the different user IDs in and nothing else, we could just essentially compile a list of user IDs straight from doing that, which is quite nice to have. The final thing, which basically handles everything else, is the execute function, which is literally just that. That's just the standard execution. The next thing we're going to do is the update function. This is a slightly bizarre one, because this function is for updating the database with new information that the bot has missed while it's been offline. So if it's been offline, or if it's starting for the first time, obviously you're going to want to add all the members that joined while it was offline to the database, and you're going to want to remove all the members that left while it was offline from the database. This will just allow you to do that. So for member in guild.members, we can actually use the first one of these, and we can use insert or ignore into. Now if you're not familiar with SQL, then W3C schools, or W3 schools I think it is pretty good at working all this out. Essentially insert or ignore into is if the member, or if that record already exists, it'll just throw it away, or just skip the thing, otherwise it'll insert it into. So it saves me having to do a bit more logic in Python, really, because SQL is a language that's designed for comparisons and numbers, so it works quite well for it. Member ID, it's probably marginally faster to actually use insert or ignore rather than have a separate if statement. And then for user ID, so now add everyone it's missed. This will remove everyone it's missed. So we're actually using the column. Select user ID from users, so that will select every user ID in the database. If guild.get member, we're using that new thing that we learned. ID is, that is definitely how it works, isn't it? Guild.get member, yeah, that's fine. Is none. So if it can't find a member database, or if it can't convert the or if it can't use the ID to get a member, then we'll delete from users where user ID equals user ID. And then ideally you want to commit that straight away. So we have this database commit, but we're also going to want an asynchronous database commit. This isn't really necessary, but for purposes of scheduling, it's just easier to have a little wraparound like this. And then def disconnect, this really isn't particularly useful unless you're importing a database library in from another place, and you just want to have the functions without having to import the entire database object in. You can just call this function, it will find, the database is here, and then it will just close it down. So these two are quite useful to have. This one's useful to have for asynchronous stuff if you're scheduling it. If you're not scheduling it, then that doesn't need to be asynchronous. You'll see what I mean in the next video though, because that'll make itself clear. So that's all the database commands. One more thing we are quickly going to do is we're going to, if I just bring my little test thing down, there it is. We want to be able to add and remove members as they join the server. So one thing we can do is database.execute insert into users user ID values, just the one value, member.id, and when a new member joins they will be added to the thing. For now we're gonna use just use this one. There's no need to use the asynchronous one really. For now we're just going to commit it there. We are going to have a bit of an auto save going on. later, but just so you can actually see the changes as they happen, we're just going to put that there. One thing I should say about committing to a database, if you don't know, a commit is basically when you hit Control S on a Word document or a Notepad document or something. Once something is committed, there's no going back. If a database is never committed, it will never actually save. The program that's accessing the database will still have access to all this information. It will have access to something called the database journal, which is essentially a list. Well, it's essentially a file that contains the database as it would be if it were to commit. But if you don't do that, it will never save. Once you close the connection, it's all gone. Yeah, if a member leaves, we want to get rid of there. We want to get rid of them because they suck and they don't belong. They don't deserve to be here anyway. Apologies for all the door slamming in the background, by the way. I know that's happened a few times. It's difficult to time. You don't really know when it's going to happen, so it's quite difficult to time. I try and edit it out whenever it's possible, but it's just not going to happen all the time. That's the only problem with living in shared accommodation. You can't blame the other person at all. I mean, they've got to leave, really, at some point. But it's just one of those things that no one can really help. And if I'm talking while it's happening, then I can't really edit it out. If I don't happen to be talking while it's happening, then I can get very lucky. See, let's set up our database. Ow, also that's incredibly perfect. I see. Wait. Hang on. Oh, actually, we're not finished, are we? Also, I probably shouldn't have done that. How was that possible? Wait, hang on. What have I done? What's this currently showing? Okay, I don't think that the program actually had a connection to the database at the time. We're not actually done, I don't think. Although I have actually completely forgot what we needed to do. This is something I realised, oh yeah, that was it. Something I realised just before I started this. I was like, oh crap, we actually need to call the update function, don't we? When the bot is logged on. It needs to be when the bot is logged on. It can't be before. Because the bot needs to have access to the guild, and it doesn't have access to the guild until, well, after this line. So if we load up the database, you can actually have a database in read-only. It supports SQLite 3 supports an infinite number of read connections, but only one write connection at any given time. So for a bot like this, that's not going to be an issue. For a bot like another one I'm building, that is an issue. And I'm going to have to work around that. But yeah, as you can see, me and the bot as well. Actually, we probably don't want the bot in there. Yeah, we actually probably don't want the bot in there. Well, so I'm going to quickly go up. The welcome and goodbye thing has already done that, but we'll just create a new list here. Member for member in guild.members if not a member dot not a member dot bob. So that will just populate a table of human members. It should be fine. No, because it committed everything already. God damn it. Hang on. Let me just get rid of these records. We don't need them. We don't need them. Right, those changes, otherwise everything will break. Load that back up. Once everything's ready, eventually, there we go. So I've been put in. As you can see, the current time, well, it's 10:15 down here, but it's showing up as 1:15. And I am in the server. Sorry about that. If I was to find my tablet, there it is, and re-invite my test account once again, we can go back to, because we've committed everything instantly, we can actually go back to the database already and find that we have a new entry, and it's my test account, which doesn't have an ID that particularly high on mine. I didn't realize I made it that early. Apparently I started making Discord bots sooner than I thought. Basically the moment I got on Discord I was like, right, I'm writing Discord bots. Yeah, it was actually really back when my Superboost server existed. My god, that was a very long time ago. That server hasn't existed for ages and ages and ages. So yeah, and if our little test account were to leave again, which I'll quickly just do from the tablet, just so it's easier. Leave server, yes. Boom, they're gone. Poof. Magic. It's magic, isn't it? Technology, it's magic. Yeah, that's pretty much all we needed to show off for today. So we now have our user tracking. We now have our Facebook systems, so we can now track user information. No, we're not tracking all that much, to be fair. We're just tracking what we need to track. What we need to track and what we want to track. There's no personal information here, really. Yeah. Next time, what are we doing next one? I believe we're doing the scheduled stuff and the leveling. We are scheduled tasks and leveling systems. So I'm going to be teaching you how to kind of have things happen every once in a while, and I'll be teaching you how to build an experience system in your server, so members can gain XP and can level up. But as always, if you have any feedback or any questions, leave them in the comments below. I would really appreciate it. Again, if you have any questions and someone else has answered them for you, then that's it answered. I don't need to answer it too. Hasn't happened yet, but if the channel actually gets anywhere, then that will happen at some point. We'll have to see about that, won't we? But yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for, what would it be, part 8? Jesus. But yeah, until then,